Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Bible Study Live with Connie and friends, Connie and sisters and friends. Sorry, I'm running a little late tonight. I am not in my normal space. As you can see, I'm staying at the house of a dear friend in California. So I apologize for my delayed appearance. We are going to continue our study of love stories in the Bible. And we're going to do a shorty tonight because, like I said, I'm not home. I'm trying to be, mindful of my host. So, but I want to welcome my sister Gina, who is also visiting a dear friend. So I'll bring her on in just a moment. So, I know my thing is lopsided because I don't have a sitting. Do I look sideways? Should I? Okay, I'm good. Okay, good. So I'm good. Gina gave me thumbs up. So tonight's topic is called A Complicated Love Story. And honestly, as you guys know, usually there's like one sentence in the scripture that I'll read and I'll think, oh, that's deep. And it just opens up a whole thing for me. So that's what happened when I read this. It's a familiar story to many of you. It's certainly familiar to me, but it's about Jacob and Rachel's sister Leah. And if you don't know that story, Jacob fell in love with Rachel, and you'll see what happens. So I'm going to read it. Go to Genesis 29. That's where we're going to begin. And then we'll talk along the way. So Genesis 29, and we're going to start at verse, it's sort of, well, we'll start at verse 14 so that we can start at a whole verse instead of 14b. It says, then Laban said to him, you are my own flesh and blood. And that's important to know that, oh, we got to go back further. So hold on. Let's start a little earlier in the scripture. So Jacob is out, and he had to get away from his brother because he had stolen his blessing. So there was some issues. Jacob had issues. We talked about that too. And if you we'll start at the top of 29 because there's some interesting pieces in here that I want to mention. So it says, then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the field with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. So interesting, the phrasing, water the sheep. Anyway, then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, my brothers, where are you from? We're from Haran, or Haran. We'll call it Haran. They replied. He said to them, do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson? Yes, we know him, they answered. Then Jacob asked him, is he well? How's he doing? Is he all right? Yes, he is, they said. And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep. Look, he said, the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to the pasture. We can't, they replied, until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep. Okay, so they had a process. We get all the sheep together first, then we give them some water, and then we put the stone back. We're not rolling that stone multiple times. That's what I'm hearing. So he's like, wait, go ahead. It's not time for flocks to be gathered. I don't want to wait here all day. Just give them some water and take them back. That's not how we do things in Haran. While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. I don't know any shepherdesses. Gina, you know any shepherdesses? Okay, I'm just wondering. All right. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother. Now, keep in mind, his mother's brother. So Laban is his uncle, which means Rachel is his first cousin, right? Mother is Laban's sister, because it says Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother. That's who Laban is, his mother's brother, and Laban's sheep. He went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. He's like, let me get that for you, baby girl. That's basically what he said. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. I'm just saying, I've never seen you. I don't know you, and you're coming up and you're kissing me. Thank you for your chivalry, but you don't get a kiss. That's me. except maybe she didn't mind. Just saying, she might not have mind. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah. So she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home. And there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." Now, I'm going to stop there. That's half of 14. But I also know, because we read about it last week with David and Jonathan, and there can be a holy kiss. There can be a kiss of greeting. We don't know what kind of kiss it was. It's just that as you read a little further in the scripture, you realize he's attracted to Rachel. So it just makes you wonder. That's all I'm saying. It could have been just a greeting kiss. I kissed Janet when I got here. We gave each other a kiss on the cheek. It meant nothing. It's nothing romantic. Anyway, so after Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Now, Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah or Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes. I'm just saying, Gina knows my situation. I remember when Gina found out I was legally blind without my contacts, and now I got readers and contacts. It's a lot. So, all right, I had weak eyes, but Leah had weak eyes. But Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. So maybe her eyes weren't just like mine, where maybe they were. Maybe. So back then they didn't have contacts. If I didn't have contacts, I'd look like this. So maybe her eyes were weak like mine. Maybe there's something else going on. Basically, they compared Leah and Rachel. They said Leah had weak eyes and Rachel was lovely in form. And beautiful. Not lovely in form, but lovely in form and beautiful. She had a papa going on. Jacob was in love with Rachel. It's been a month. He's seen her, gave her a kiss when he first saw her, when first day met her. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel." That's a commitment right there, y'all. He didn't say, "Oh, why don't you let me marry Rachel and I'll just keep working for you." I'm going to put the work in. I will work for you for 7 years and then please let me marry Rachel. We all want that kind of love where I will do whatever it takes. I'm going to work hard. I love her. This is what I want. That would be lovely. That kind of commitment. I'm not mad at it. Laban said, "It's better that I give her to you than to some other man." Not a resounding statement of endorsement, but okay, we'll take it. Better I give her to you than some other man. Stay here with me. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. I love that statement. I love that statement. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is completed and I want to lie with her." So to me, that says she stayed pure. They were not having relations. He was honoring her and was in love, but had not, he was being a gentleman and she was being a lady. And they were also under, daddy's roof. So there's some other stuff going on there, but nothing was going on between them sexually. So I also like that. So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. Now, I'm just saying, listen, they said that Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. Leah couldn't have been no slouch. She wasn't, 600 pounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, he would have known if clearly he was ready after 7 years. I get that. But if she had been markedly different than her sister, you would think he would know. So I'm assuming they were veiled and, they didn't see her face. And I get all what must have happened with the face, but the rest of her, outside of her weak eyes, must have looked a lot like her sister. That's all I'm saying. Because he lay with her. And Laban gave his servant girl Zilpah to his daughter as her maidservant. When morning came, I mean, he was there. Jacob was with Leah all night long. It says, when morning came, there was Leah. He pulled the okeydoke. So Jacob said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me? And he had sown the seed of deceit already. Jacob had, if you think about, getting his father's blessing. So I'm just saying turnabout, but there you go. So Laban replied, it is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week. Then we will give you the younger one also in return for another 7 years of work. So just be with her for the week. Do that. Be a husband to her for the week. We'll give you Rachel at the end of the week, but you still have to commit to working for another 7 years. That's pretty interesting. So, this is called a complicated relationship. And I would want my husband to know that it wasn't me before he slept with her. But even if somehow he didn't realize, I would want him to say, I'm not sleeping with her for a week. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be, no, that's what I would want. I'm just saying, I get the custom. But of course, Laban should have said what the custom was before he promised Rachel after 7 years work. I'm just saying, it was messy. It was complicated and messy. But Jacob did so. You can see in verse 28, it says, and Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah. And then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant girl Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maidservant. So you got Leah with Zilpah, Rachel with Bilhah. So you got these four, it's supposedly 2 wives and each had a maidservant, but it gets more complicated. Jacob lay with Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. In that statement, he loved Rachel more than Leah. What I read is he also loved Leah. He did love Leah, but he loved Rachel more. And he worked for Laban another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, not the way he loved Rachel, was not loved, he opened her womb. But Rachel was barren. Leah became pregnant, so he's still doing the thing. He may not have loved her, but you see where I'm going with this. So gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, it is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now. She conceived again. And when she gave birth to a son, she said, because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too. So she named him Simeon. So, he steadily is trying to get Rachel pregnant. That's not happening. So he's steadily just going one to the, it's a lot going on. Complicated. Again, she conceived, this time number 3. And when she gave birth to a son, she said, now at last my husband will become attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons. Honey, he's clearly attached. You got 3 sons. I'm just saying. So she named him, he was named Levi. She conceived again. And when she gave birth to a son, she said, this time I will praise the Lord. So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, give me children or I'll die. Jacob became angry with her and said, we're in chapter 30, by the way, you guys, we're done with 29. Now we're in 30. So Jacob became angry with her and said, am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children? Then she said, Here is Bilhah, my maidservant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and that through her I too can build a family. Because the way it worked, your maidservants were like an extension of you. So if they bore a child, it was as though it was your child as well, because she belonged to Rachel. So the child sort of belonged to Rachel, sort of, but not. Oh man. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife. Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son. Then Rachel said, God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son. So it's like she's a surrogate, right? Because of this, she named him Dan. It wasn't flesh of her flesh, but it was like a surrogate. She names him Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, I have had a great struggle with my sister, and I have won. So she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her maidservant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, what good fortune. So she named him Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, how happy I am. The women will call me happy. So she named him Asher. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants, which he brought to his mother, Leah. Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. Now here's the sentence. When I said I get stuck on a sentence, listen to the sentence. But she said, this is Leah talking to Rachel, wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too? Look, y'all listen here now. This was supposed to be Rachel's husband all along. They did the okeydoke and slipped Leah in. And now she's saying, Leah's saying to Rachel, you took away my husband. Complicated. That's all I'm saying. Complicated love story. So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, oh, wait, hold on. She said, I skipped a sentence you need to hear. So it says, but she said to her in verse 15 of chapter 30, wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too? Very well, Rachel said. He can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes. I don't understand these mandrakes, y'all. I'm just saying. So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. You must sleep with me, she said. I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So he slept with her that night. God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a fifth son. So she's got 5 herself. Her maidservant has 2, and Rachel's maidservant has 2. Then Leah said, God has rewarded me for giving my maidservant to my husband. So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a 6th son. Then Leah said, God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. Sometime later, she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Just FYI, she did have a girl, Dinah, sometime later. So, again, steadily being interactive with Jacob. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph and said, may the Lord add to me another son. All right, that ends what I'm reading tonight. That's Genesis. We went all of Genesis 29 and Genesis 31 through 24. There's some more to go, but I'm going to leave at that point, because there's a lot to talk about in that story. But I will say, you talk about a complicated relationship, from the deception of doing a wife swap, to having, all these children. And of course, in biblical times, that was the mark of a worthy woman, is being able to bear her husband, specifically sons, not just children, but sons. But like I said, the thing that struck me was that Leah felt like Rachel had taken her husband away. And it did say that Jacob loved Rachel more than Leah, but he didn't say Jacob only. That scripture doesn't say Jacob only loved Rachel. It says he loved Rachel more than Leah, which we knew. That's why he worked 7 years. So anyway, it's like, come on now, we knew that already. But it's an interesting thing, and a complicated love story, a complicated relationship. Jacob ended up loving all of the wives he had before at that point, because he had Leah first, then Rachel's maidservant, then Leah's maidservant. And he had all those sons. But of course, Rachel gave birth to Joseph, and you know what happened with that. All those sons that came before, that came from everybody but Rachel, they were jealous of Joseph. And so you know the story, where the story goes from there. But that's how all those sons came to be, was, all of that. But that sentence of Leah feeling like Rachel took away her husband, that just really got to me. It really got to me. And it bothered me that I get, back in the day, older one married first, and I understand all of that. And I'm sure Rachel knew that. I'm sure Leah knew that. I wish that since men of means could have more than one wife, I wish that the women had gotten along better, that, they were sisters. This is what happened. This is a sign of the times. And rather than them competing with each other, you guys, I am getting so many, somebody sending me text messages because they got the wrong number from a florist, and they are mad that their roses are not ready. And I tried to tell them it was the wrong number, and they said, this is the number you gave me when I was in your store yesterday. So I just said wrong number, and my phone has been blinking and buzzing since I've been on this call. So anyway, I'm so sorry, rose people. I hope you can find where you really ordered your roses. So anyway, I think that's interesting, but I digress. It is a very complicated love story, and I'm going to bring my sister. We don't share any husbands. We haven't, had competition over babies. In fact, I get to tell a wonderful story. Let me bring her on screen so you can see her. And then let me tell this wonderful story about my beautiful sister. So when I was born with these, spinal issues and things like that. And one of the things that the doctor said was that I'd never be able to have children, and that I'd be in a wheelchair by 21, just go on disability when I turned 18. They wrote me off. Just get on muscle relaxers now. I know you're only 10, but just, go take drugs. And I didn't. I had a wonderful life, but then came time I was married and hoping to have a baby. And we didn't know if I'd be able to carry one to term. And my sister had some internal things going on where she knew she needed to have a hysterectomy or a partial hysterectomy. And she delayed it. She delayed it for a long time. And I didn't know the reason why. And I found out as soon as I had my baby, Zora, Gina went ahead and had the surgery. And the reason she delayed the surgery is she was trying to keep her womb open and intact in case she needed to carry a baby for me. And that is just the sweetest thing ever. That's a sister. It is so sweet. You can roll your eyes if you want to. That is the sweetest thing ever. And she didn't need to carry a baby for me, although that was, I went into preterm labor in 22 weeks. It was dicey. Almost didn't happen. Bed rest for 4 months, but ultimately Zora was born April 15th, and Zora's due date was April 20th. So I'm glad that Zora was born on the 15th, because April 20th of the year that Zora was born was Columbine, which will go down in history as, what happened on April 20th, 1999. So I was glad that my baby was born on April 15th. But my kind sister There was no competition of, having, babies or having the same husband. Gina kept her womb open for me, so that if I needed her to carry a child, that she could. And that is just as sweet as can be. So thank you, sister. Yet again, no more eye rolling.
Always, not eye rolling. Um, First, let me just say, um, Laban. Laban was Rachel's dad. I forget the names as quickly as I hear them. But let me just say, that whole custom, he made that up.
Right.
As of today, our custom is that we don't give away the
Wasn't
younger
going to
daughter
find
until.
anybody to marry Leah. That's what it was.
That's exactly what happened. And he could have said, if that were the custom, he could have said, okay, here's the deal. I mean, you already made the comment that, he didn't give him a glowing endorsement, but he could have said, okay, technically you're going to end up working for me for 14 years because I'm going to need you to take the younger one before you take the older one.
Or the other way.
Yes. No. Yes. He had to take the younger one before he took the older one. Oh, no, he took the older one. Leah was older. Yes. He had to take the older one before he took the younger. Yes. And she was probably cross-eyed, clearly, like you said, she clearly wasn't her. She was probably shapely like Rachel in order to be mistaken for her. Yeah, but he was her husband first. And he was her husband a whole week before Rachel came along, and she had him physically before Rachel did, and continued to have him physically. So she technically was first wife. They talk about first wife, and she was first wife. And even if she, whatever, she probably had been in love with him from the moment she saw him. And, there's a whole situation. And yes, her heart was broken. And it wasn't, clearly, she knew what the deal was, but her heart was still broken. So that meant that she had feelings for him. And God was like, okay, here you go, babies, because, you had feelings. And then, rather than be gracious about it, Rachel turns into a shrew. And I don't mean that you sleeping with my husband, but a shrew as far as, now we have to have a baby competition because you got babies, and if I don't get babies, I'm going to die. And you need to, and she tell him you need to. Clearly, it wasn't his problem because he was making them.
Right. He was not shooting blanks. Yeah.
He was not shooting blanks. So anyway.
But Jean, I agree that Leah was the first wife, except in his eyes, he thought he was with his first wife. He thought he was with the love. I don't know why, but
the first night.
The first night. That's true. Just the first night.
For the rest of those 6 days,
he knew who he was with.
So,
like I said, I would have wanted him to say, I'm not doing that. I slipped up this first time. You fooled me once. Shame on it. But no.
But he waited. He would have done anything to get Rachel.
That's true.
I've already slept with her. Now I've ruined her for any other man. You tricked me. So okay. All right. I get Rachel in 6 days. T-minus 6 days. It's like so it's just tragic that the sisters, then it turned into what it turned into.
And then you see it generationally, how it affected their kids.
Yes.
They threw Joseph into a well.
Yes. I would have to hope that, if we had a situation like that, we would be like, well, more help with the
Monday,
dishes.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Right. Odd days, even days, and more help with more help cleaning the bathroom. So yeah, it's tragic, but complicated. Like
it is
complicated.
Because I do agree. Like you said, she kind of turned into a shrew. But imagine if you knew this man was working all these years for you, and then that happened, the switch happened, and then
and then you couldn't get pregnant. Yeah. Yes. Oh, I know. Pregnant. And then you can't even get pregnant. No, and that's the only worth that a woman had was being able to bloop out these boys. Yeah. So yeah, I get it. I get the frustration. I totally do. But what's complicated about it, what's interesting about it, is the misplaced anger and frustration.
The frustration is
Yes. Now
sister
you're mad at your
against
sister,
sister.
and right,
Yes,
your sister didn't do anything. Well,
right.
I mean, she's sleeping with your husband, but both sisters are feeling like you're sleeping with my husband.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a mess. It was messy boots, as
It
Zora would
was
say. It was messy
messy.
boots, and like you said, and then it became a generational nasty, ugly awfulness. So.
Yep,
And
yep.
but it seems like every time somebody gave their husband a handmaiden to try that
I
never
know.
worked out.
No, that Sarah Abraham Hagar mess was horrible. That
That
didn't work out either.
it
Mm-mm.
never worked. Who's that?
No.
I
Whose
mean,
fault was that one? Yeah.
this is rich women being able to. This is a problem.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, but yeah, complicated, and you know,
He didn't help. He didn't help.
I don't know what was he supposed to do though? I
I
mean,
know. At that point,
I guess at some point he could have just refused to sleep with Leah going forward. But that's not really what you're supposed to do either, is it?
right. I,
I
I
mean,
certainly would have liked for him. I mean, I guess Rachel felt like she had no choice, but okay, now here's my handmaiden. You can have her as a wife. Just all of it. Like, whose job is it to say enough? And I will say, I mean, then that goes back to the Adam and Eve situation. So the woman says, do the thing, and the man just says, okay. Like, really?
well, again, we saw that in our parents' relationship that good, bad, or ugly, if mom said she wanted it,
Right. It was gonna
that was
happen.
that was the love. That was the way dad
That's
showed
what,
love for her.
yeah.
So, he loved her, he loved Rachel. She wanted a baby. Looked like this was the only way to get one. So,
Sure. I'll sleep with her and we call it yours. Because she called it her son. He's born me a son, even though it came from her handmaiden.
yeah,
So
because she owned her handmaiden.
she owned her handmaiden.
So,
Mm.
right?
Complicated.
Very
And then, like you
complicated.
said, the misplaced anger or
Hmm.
frustration or whatever, if there was some to be had, which clearly there was, the fact that they took it out on each other, it's just,
Right. Well, should have been mad
ugh,
at daddy.
right. But
Right?
when she tried to get mad at daddy, who am I? I'm not God. When you try, he got mad
No,
at her.
not that daddy.
Oh, Laban daddy. Yeah.
Laban's the
But
one.
I agree with you. I assume that Leah's eyes were, when it said weak, that it was like you said, one lazy one or something where she was not the choice material. That, yeah,
Right. Right. Not that she couldn't see well.
right.
Because I mean, it,
But
it
just
doesn't
saying.
matter how well you see. It really, if you look good, you don't have to see well.
Right, exactly. I'm gonna take my contacts out from now on.
Right?
Wander around,
Right?
rubbing in everything.
Yes. You don't have to see well if you look good. Yeah, we know that. Anyway,
Anyway.
you don't have to be smart, right? You don't have to see well. You don't have to
You
think
know,
well.
yeah,
No. I heard a
start
guy
with
say
your
one time that long hair was worth 10 IQ points for him.
well, then there you go.
There you go. 10 IQ points is the difference between average and medically slow. I was like, okay.
Okay. All right then.
It's complicated.
Because it made me wonder, did Leah keep her eyes closed the whole time that first night? Like
No. But like you
did they
said,
look that much alike? All she had to just did Laban say just keep your eyes closed? Do what you do, keep your eyes closed.
well, I just wondered, when they talked about they had the big party, I think he was just three sheets to the wind. Home team was toasted that first night.
Yeah, it could have been. That could have been.
So,
Whoever was in bed was gonna get slept with. But it said morning came and there was Leah! Exclamation point.
because when you wake up with a hangover, that's how it feels. Right?
Who's this? What happened last night? Oh my goodness.
Yes. Yes.
Complicated.
Very much so.
Anyway, thanks you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna sign off now. I hope you enjoyed tonight, and I'll post it later on YouTube when I get a chance. All right. Good night, Facebook, YouTube, everybody who's watching.